I'm wanting to know, can a person be aligned with the vibration of love and gratitude and yet participate directly or indirectly in killing animals for any reason, for food or for whatever? How is that aligned with the vibration of love, the vibration of gratitude, which I see as pretty much the same vibration?
Are killing and dying equally abhorrent to you?
No, absolutely not.
What's the difference?
Well, we're all going to die. We don't really die. We transition into spirit. Killing to me is somebody outside of yourself, be it an animal or person, somebody else deciding that it's your time to go and taking charge of that.
Well, we know you've heard us talk about this before,
Yes,
because
yes.
You're ready for everything that we might say back to you. So we are willing, if you want to really get to the heart of what you're asking here and see if we can't bring this into some sort of vibrational alignment for you. But we want to start with a premise that has a solid basis, one that's not flawed. That's why we're asking the difference between what you think of killing and what you think of dying, because it feels to us as we visit with almost all of you that there is this practice abhorrence at the idea of death that is sort of at the heart of your struggle with that. And we just want to make sure that that's not part of your struggle. We want you to tell us what's wrong.
What doesn't feel right is if I went out and killed another person, I feel like vibrationally I would be attracting all kinds of negative energy around myself for whatever reason I killed them. I mean, if I deliberately, I'm talking deliberately, intended to hurt another person, kill or hurt, either one, really, I would put them in the same boat. If I deliberately went out and beat somebody up or deliberately went out and ran over them, that doesn't feel good to me.
So it's hard for us to envision you killing them and eating them.
Right.
So the motivation for killing them is different than personal survival. Yes?
Yes.
So what is it about an animal killing another animal and eating it? In other words, what is it about none of your animal population or much of your animal population not being in existence if it were not for the food supply that is offered by the other animals? And what is it about the agreement and harmony that they all are born into that you now want to change? In other words, the survival of your planet is dependent upon this agreement. And so that's why we keep encouraging you into alignment with the agreement.
I guess that's it. I don't believe that we have to kill to eat, to survive. Then
which of your animals would still be here if they did not kill and eat other animals? How many fish would be in your sea?
But I think, well, there's two questions here. One, the human consciousness, I think, is a different consciousness level that I think can create something else. I'm not so sure of the animal consciousness that they could, but the human people you talk about is we are the leading edge of thought. So why can't we? There are so many options.
We are willing to go with you on this thought. In other words, there isn't anything right or wrong here, and we want you to explore whatever and create whatever you're wanting, and you are free to kill whoever you decide to kill and eat whoever you decide to eat or whatever you decide to eat. In other words, but your struggle is with everyone else. We don't think you're out hunting, and we don't think you're out hunting and killing, and you might even be the place where you're not even eating anything that anybody else has hunted and killed. And so under normal circumstances, we would like to say then your world is complete. You know what you believe, you know what you want to do, you're in alignment with what you want to do, and so all is well with you. But your struggle is not between you and the beast. Your struggle is now with the others. And the reason that we're trying to broaden your thinking about this is because the others includes the beasts too.
Yes.
And so we know that it's not hard for us to realize that you're not going to turn this around and that you really don't want to turn it around, because we were in on the beginning of it all being set up. In other words, we know how the evolution of your time-space reality happens. It's a constant reinfusing of spirit into a material world that is constantly changing form. And the constant changing of form is part of the process that you now think we should do away with. You're following us? In other words, not really, but
intellectually.
as we've mentioned already a few times here today, there's this stream of energy that is flowing, and your alignment with that stream is where you find your well-being. And so when you align with the idea of well-being, you experience well-being. When you find some pocket of something and you decide to call it not well-being, especially if it's a condition that you have no way in the world of controlling or changing, then you just hold yourself eternally in the state of not well-being. And so the questions that we want to put to you are things like, do you understand the evolution of your planet? Do you get an idea that every consciousness stands in a place and has an experience, and from its experience sends out a rocket of desire which source energy answers? And so we have to say to you that if all of these beasts that were being eaten by all of the other beasts and even by all of the people were standing in a place where they were sending out rockets of desire that was requesting something different, then something different would be the experience that they're having. But they're not requesting something different because the experience that they're having is in alignment with the intent that they held as they made the decision to come forth to be here, you see. In other words, the joy that anyone lives is always 100% of the time, whether it's a dog or a dove or a doe or whether it's a human, the contentment or the feeling of well-being that they're living in the moment every single time is about their alignment with source energy. So we have to tell you from our perspective, which is a broad vantage point, that there are animals all over your planet that are not suffering over the idea of being someone's dinner. They're just not worried about it because they are living in the moment and they are not worried about the idea of death, you see. The majority of the animals that are being consumed by humans would not exist at all if it were not for the consumption of humans. They would not be in physical form at all because they are being bred and raised and fed and encouraged so that they can be food. So are you saying that you would rather that they didn't come forth into physical existence at all? That it would be better if they did not have the physical life experience at all, since they're being raised toward the end of being eaten?
So it's not their issue, it's just mine.
It's only yours. We're not saying that you are the only one who has the issue, but we promise you it is not the issue of the animals. So what a conversation like this does, always does, is it magnifies and brings us to a crescendo where we have to ask you the most important question of all, and that is, do you accept or do you acknowledge or are you trying to find a way to get your thoughts around the idea that there is a source of well-being that is at the heart or the guts, if you will, of all that is coming forth into that which you call physical? In other words, do you think that you are a random accident just happening, or do you think that you are a product of deliberate intention of source energy?
Oh, a product of deliberate intention.
Then why can you not accept the well-being that is all part of that intention? In other words, because you can't have it both ways. You can't say God is good and God has set all of this forth, but it's screwed up in this way and in this way and in this way. In other words, that's like people saying, oh yes, God is wonderful and God has created all of this good stuff except that bad stuff and that bad stuff and that bad stuff. And we say it is all the creation of this very wise, very loving source energy consciousness. And when you get in sync with what that energy is so that you understand what's happening here, now the discord you discover was always your own. That's like people saying all of this bad stuff should be eradicated from the planet, and we say you can't come into it. We're not getting anywhere with you, are we?
Well, I don't feel that way so much about all this bad stuff. I can actually allow terrorism. I can allow, I mean, it doesn't mean it resonates. I agree with it or would participate consciously, intentionally. But go ahead. I am listening.
Well, it doesn't really matter which of the stuff you select as your particular bag of bad stuff that you're pushing against. What we're saying to you is if you will work a little bit to find vibrational alignment with your knowledge that it is all well intended and that source is an energy of well-being and that what source is projecting forward is a recipe for continuing evolution. In other words, if this were not a good plan, you would have ceased to exist a very long time ago. Of course, you're continually fine-tuning it from where you stand, but the basis of your existence is solid and secure and is based in love. And it is our promise to you, because we visit with every consciousness, that there isn't a cow or a rabbit or a chicken that comes forth that doesn't come forth without understanding what this physical life experience is about. And not one of them spend their days while they're enjoying their existence worrying about when the end's going to come. That's a human phenomenon. They don't get together and fret over those things. Instead, they stand in their existence and they embrace life. And if that were not true, they would not come forth to do it. We're wanting you to understand that something that is set forth from source energy cannot be as wrong-sided as you think that it is. Death is inevitable. The big fish eating the little fish is inevitable. It's part of a bigger plan, and you've got to come into alignment with it, or you set yourself up for suffering forevermore. You can't change it, you see. You can't change it. And we think the reason that those words are so uncomfortable is because here we say, this is the science of deliberate creation. And so you say, well, if this is the science of deliberate creation, then I want to change this. I want it to be different than it is. And we say, we have to say fairly to you that you get to choose, and you get to identify what kind of world you want. And when you stop beating the drum of the injustice of that and start beating the drum of the things that you are wanting to have in your experience, little or none of that will come into your experience. And you say, no, I want it not to exist at all. And we say, now you're in that place that so many people are in, where you're living this very conditional love that says, I can't feel love under these conditions. And we say, yes, you can. You can feel unconditional love. You can hook up with love under all conditions, if love is more important to you than the issue, you say.
You know, I think one of the inconsistencies for me is that I see people with their pets, and, you know, they love their pets and they would do anything for their pet. Some people, and they treat them with such great respect. And it's just hard to understand how you can give so much love to one animal, and yet, you know, they would just be very upset if somebody had their pet for dinner. You know, so it just feels like an inconsistency to me. This is helping. I'm not there yet, but I'm setting some intentions around this. But it seems like an inconsistency vibrationally.
We are not suggesting that as you look out into this world that there are not all kinds of things that you would like to be different. In other words, there are people mistreating children. There are bombs being dropped on children. Right. People don't usually drop bombs on their own children. Right. And there is extreme feeling of discord in all of that. And so we are agreeing with you that there are things around this planet that when you look at them that you don't like them, and that you would feel better if they would change. But what this gathering is about is helping you to understand that if your happiness depends upon the changing of things, especially something as well entrenched and important to the survival and existence of your planet as this is, and you can't find a way of finding happiness with it existing, then you're going to be in deep, deep trouble. We so much want to soothe you and help you to find a way of looking at it so that you can not only be all right with it, but so that you can get on with your joyful life experience, you see. Right. And so much of the world is saying, I can't be happy as long as that's happening, and I can't be happy as long as that's happening. And we say, you're squandering your life about things that really are not for you to worry about. Mm-hmm. Find things that line you up with source energy, and that's what the animals do. The animals line up with source energy, and they don't fret over it, and they live happy lives. And even if you would rather that they didn't come forth because they're going to be eaten later, we promise you that they want to come forth or they wouldn't come forth, and that they're joyful in coming forth or they wouldn't come forth, and that it's part of a very good plan or they wouldn't be coming at all. In other words, all is really well here. All is much more weller than you are currently willing to allow yourself to feel. And it is our desire that you want so much to feel good that you find a way of feeling good no matter what is happening around you. And when you do, you will affect the world that surrounds you by the vibration of alignment that you have discovered. And you will live the happy life that you've come forth to live. And someday you will reemerge into non-physical, and you will converse with all of these energies that have been all kinds of things, and they will express to you firsthand in a way that you can hear, because you won't be resistant. You'll be able to hear it. You'll recognize that what they are saying and what you know are one and the same thing, thing, and that is that life is good, and that there's no such thing as death, and death is good because it is only more life, and that the world is going around, and that everybody is participating, is liking to participate, and the bird, even if it only flies for a day, loved the flight that it had for the day, and will come back again and fly again and 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 again. In other words, there's no end to the physical bodies that these energies are coming forth to be in. They're not hung up on only one body. In other words, I got to take this one body and I got to drag it around and I got to make it my eternal soul, and I've got to prove worthiness for the end and all end in this one physical body. And the animal knows that it's just a temporary vessel through which it's going to live a joyful life experience.